Hi, I'm Christoph Wagner. I'm originally from Germany. I'm a cellist and have lived in the United States for the past 7 years. And it has been a while since I've been vegan, and it's so second nature for me now. So I would say a little bit more than 10 years, more or less, but it again was also not like an overnight thing for me, because I didn't have any vegan friends. No one else vegan showing me how to go vegan. It was like a little bit slower journey for me. I had to teach myself. And when I grew up, we were mainly like vegetarian, and definitely like for ethical considerations. And when I started college, I definitely was vegetarian because, first of all, I never learned how to make any meat, and I wouldn't trust like the cafeteria meat. So I was definitely vegetarian, and now I say, thankfully, I had like a dairy intolerance, so I never did a lot of milk. So it was actually really, really easy then to move towards that plant-based vegan diet. And it took a couple of years to actually understand the whole scope. Definitely started off more with like ethical considerations. I did not know anything about the environmental impact, and I also didn't really know about that it's actually much healthier to eat that way. So now, having figured out these three plus domains of ethics, health, and environment, and social justice, what else like more? There's definitely no way back to eating anything but plants, and yeah.
So it sounds like it was about maybe 2011, 2012, somewhere in there.
Yeah, so definitely like being vegan, I would say like around that time. The first couple of years I was completely at home vegan, sometimes on tour, not always, just vegetarian. And that was just because I didn't have the proper information.
And you're saying prior to 2011?
Yeah. And then moving towards the whole food plant-based diet was actually in 2015. Beginning 2015, I read the China study. Mm-hmm. And that transformed definitely like the entire health aspect and added that entire health component to that vegan journey.
Prior to 2011, 2012, for a couple of years, you were moving vegan forward, with the exception of maybe when you were traveling, eating a little vegetarian. Then what was the main thing? Was there like any triggering catalyst event or catalytic event?
Actually, not that much. It was literally like a progressive journey of it becoming just more and more natural to me to be eating that way.
It wasn't intentional. It was just kind of maybe second nature or accidental, maybe?
It was natural to me to eat plants, and I always, like, even like when I was younger and I did have some animal products, there was something in me subtly telling it's not right. So there was always some kind of guilt involved, and so it was just natural. The more plants that I don't want to go back, and it didn't feel right to eat in anything else. And so I can't say that there was like actually a catalytic event such as having seen a movie or something. It was just a process more and more moving towards that, and it becoming just so natural to me that it just was the right thing to do.
How much of that progression do you think was ethical versus health?
In the beginning, it was mainly ethical, because I didn't know anything about the other things. The only thing I knew due to my dairy intolerance, that having dairy would not do my body good. So I knew that for sure. But like the health and the environmental aspect actually came later, because I remember like from the local organic store where I would shop always in Germany, where I lived. They had this monthly magazine, and I looked at it, and at some point I saw like this book review about like a vegan book, and I just thought, okay, it looks interesting. I ordered the book, read the book. For the first time, I found out, okay, oh, what is a dairy cow actually going through? I didn't even know that. And that was when I was like already like very far in the vegan journey, but that definitely reinforced that path. So I think actually that book was probably the strongest supportive event for that existing journey I was on already. In that book also it was explained about the environmental impact of food. I had no idea before that.
What was the name of the book again?
I think it was just called Vegan, like a German book, but it was like, it covered everything. It covered like ethics, it covered like, what animals are going through, like animal farming, factory farming and so on. It covered health, it covered environment. So it was just a general overview. And there was a lot of new information for me. And because I didn't know anyone else who was vegan in my close friendship and family, I had to teach myself, and that book definitely helped a lot and did reinforce all that.
As you've progressed more and more into veganism and then healthier eating, did you notice any physiological or mental or emotional changes?
Oh yeah, totally. So first of all, like in Germany, the winter is cold, and it's very common to get like a common cold in the winter. At least, like, let's say once. And once you get it, like, it can take like 1-2 weeks to actually really get over it. So these things can be pretty nasty because the winter can be really cold and wet. And so that's quite a common thing to observe that. And I also, like most winters, I had like one cold or something. And then I realized once I went like 100% vegan and not even having like 1 or 2 exceptions per month. Let's say I went to a party and they had an amazing cake and I had a little bit of a sweet tooth. I sometimes would eat that. Or I was on a tour in South Africa or something. And vegetarian was easy there and vegan more complicated. So I might have been only vegetarian.
And this is before 2011, kind of.
Yeah. But the amazing transformation happened to me from the point when I went 100% vegan, without any exceptions. It's almost like before that, even like these few exceptions would keep like a spill of oil in water. Somehow my body could not really my metabolism wasn't able to completely transform to that plant food. And once I actually was 100% vegan, after a couple of months, I noticed my body transforming, and I no longer would get these common colds in the winter. My immune system got much stronger. All that mucus stuff, in the winter, I wouldn't get the cold anymore. And I think that is an amazing sign of, okay, how is actually the body designed to function at its best and to protect us from, any kind of viruses and in the winter and so on. So that was definitely amazing and definitely another aspect of why eating anything but plants doesn't make sense to me anymore. Once I went into that health trip, also with reading the China study beginning of 2015, I also went into fitness training and yoga and so on. I'm a fitness trainer, yoga teacher, and I realized you can separate exercise and nutrition. In the fitness industry, it is quite separate. We all are being informed about we should exercise and this, but that we should eat plants is kind of left out. That is something where we definitely have to bridge the gap, and I think we all have to come together to address that elephant in the room to a certain extent. And I always like to compare it like a car. When we exercise and we say we have to push our cardio training and everything, we push on the gas pedal. But now if we imagine the car doesn't have the good fuel and doesn't have a good immune system and so on, doesn't have the motor is not really oiled and it doesn't really function so well. And then pushing on the gas pedal and working out hard actually could almost harm the car more than just driving normal, right? The same thing we are doing with our bodies. We actually put the wrong fuel in, but then we say, okay, yeah, I just have to exercise. I eat junk and I eat all that stuff. I just need to exercise. Yeah. But if you imagine actually our body, the motor, everything is not really functioning super well because it doesn't have the proper fuel. And then we just push on the gas pedal and it's not very sustainable. It's not really sustainable. And I do hope that we can make progress also, especially in the fitness industry, to really emphasize the necessity of plant-based eating.
We kind of got here with the question, what changed physiologically, mentally, and emotionally? And it sounds like there was something there with your yoga, or
Most definitely, like, the change, the transformation. It is literally a transformation of the body. The entire immune system changes, becomes much more capable of functioning. So this is clearly, and for me, and I'm not sure whether that's for everyone, that it really requires that discipline of being 100% vegan. And only then, I only received the benefits of that once I was 100% vegan for a couple of months and then down the road. Other people have experienced that earlier already, just like by adding more plant foods, they already feel better. I don't really remember, like, I always had a lot of like broccoli and a lot of salad and so. But it is interesting, like the separation in the professional fields of, we talked about fitness, right? And you're right, I mean, if we had the choice actually, if we had to choose between nutrition or exercise, I probably would say, okay, let's go for nutrition. And that probably like would have a stronger impact than going with exercise without changing anything in nutrition. So I think making the nutrition as perfect as possible, even if we don't really do the exercise, might be more impactful than vice versa. And then the other interesting thing is, like, in the yoga and mindfulness world, it was also pretty disturbing for me that, like, we have all these people like meditating and then they just eat like burgers and stuff, and I just think, wow. And the same way also there in like mental health, mindfulness, meditation, community, I think it's also so important to actually reflect on how what we eat is such a strong expression of ourselves and what impact we have in the world, and to also draw back what is our opportunity here. We do have a choice. Even if we like grew up a certain way, we do have a choice. Today, we have a choice for this meal, and we can make a huge impact with that choice. And I would almost also say, not only are there enough people who are proof, be the proof yourself. You don't need to, it's wonderful that there's a lot of data and research, but become the evidence yourself and become like the most beautiful, vital, strong, and positive being you can be. And like what we eat is like an important component of that.
Was there anything else that changed physiologically, mentally, or emotionally?
Definitely also my performance, like in runs, got much better, and it's amazing what certain foods do to fuel our body in a way the body can function at its best. It's fascinating. Emotionally and mentally, it's a good question. It has been a while, so I would have to kind of like more like guess about this. And it's more that I actually have informed myself in the meantime much more about like, okay, food and depression and food and mental health and so on. But what certainly has always been there is like that compassion and that, love for the animals. I mean, I grew up spending almost every vacation in like the Austrian Alps on the farm. I got to love all these cows there, all these calves. It was a very small farm, just 10 cows. The farmer knew every name of the cow. The calves, we like loved the calves. Once I got to see the birth of a calf, of a baby calf. And it was amazing, like baby calf comes out, it's like all like wet and, and then is in front of the cow, and the cow just kisses all over. The mother cow just kisses the baby calf all over. I saw this as a child, and we would play with the calves all the time, like, and what they really love, you put just your fingers and hand into their mouth before they have like real teeth, and they just lick it. They would do this for hours. There's so much bonding I experienced with these calves, and they are just so loving beings. And then at some point they were gone, and the farmer said, yeah, they left, and I didn't even realize what happened. And now retrospectively, I mean, I'm almost ashamed to say that, okay, it took me years to connect the dots between my experience and my love for the animals and the way I bonded with them, and actually understanding that what is on my plate is directly linked to their well-being and the way I actually can show up for them and what impact I have on them. And I'm very grateful that I now was able to connect these dots and act in a way with my food choices in a way which is in alignment to that compassion and love I have always felt for animals.
Has your reason changed?
It has not changed, but it has received like a stronger foundation through my understanding of the environmental impact and my understanding of the health, and then even go beyond that, social justice and integrity and like, you know, spirituality also. So it didn't change, but it received like a much stronger foundation. So it's no longer just one wall, it's actually like a complete foundation now to build my house on, if you want to use that metaphor. And the interesting thing is, like, literally, it doesn't matter through which door you come into that house. Is it through the backyard, is it through the side entrance, through like the basement or whatever? Be it like, you know, health, be it like environment, be it like ethical, spirituality. It doesn't matter, and like, you know, the way I speak to people about it is also like trying to understand where they are coming from. And like lots of people have like, especially like, you know, when I work with fitness clients, lots of people struggle with health issues. So this is an invitation to outline the positive impacts of like, you know, a plant-based diet. It really depends on where people are coming from. Obviously, it can be like very interesting to deal with like environmentalists who still eat like meat, and you know. So there are different ways, but whatever door we come in, it doesn't matter in the end, because in the end, everyone who enters the house understands, okay, wow, it's not just for that one purpose I came into the house. Literally, like, there's only benefits. I mean, when I first started with that vegan journey, my understanding was that vegans sacrifice their health just for that ethical purpose. That was literally like the image I had of vegans when I grew up, that I would sacrifice my health. And that one book I mentioned, like, actually like was the first book of then now many books I read, illuminating me that it's like the opposite, that there's only a benefit in every single aspect. It's a win-win-win-win-win-win solution.
There's no sacrifice.
Exactly. Like, it's a benefit for like our health, like a huge benefit for our health. Benefit for like for the planet, for the animals, for the way we live with each other, like to live up to the purpose we are designed to be. I think that's ultimately like a gateway to it.
You know, we're surrounded by a lot of people that don't understand this. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, and that is also like, you know, I had to learn over the years in the beginning, like, you know, and I observed this in lots of fresh vegans. We are like so enthusiastic and think the entire world has to be vegan, and sometimes go a little bit over the top in trying to missionize people. And this caused like a lot of conflict with my family and with my friends and so on. So I came to learn that meeting the people where they are in their journey is so crucial to actually allow for like a positive change in the long run. I mean, you know, yes, I have been vegan for a while now, but could I have been vegan earlier than that? Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm surprised that my entire childhood and high school, I didn't have that connection. And yeah, you know, so whom am I to judge on someone else's tempo and timeline? Because I did also need a certain amount of time. Could I, you know, I wish I was born vegan and born and raised vegan, but I can't change this anymore. So you know, that's like where I feel like, you know, compassion is such an important element for us vegans also have compassion with the animals and do everything we can do, but also to have compassion to other human beings, and understanding that blaming and hatred and aggression is not the solution. We have, like, for me, what I came to the conclusion is that actually, like, true love and understanding and compassion and empathy and integrity, these are like the characteristics for me to share with other people my journey, and really meeting them where they are and still loving them. You know, we are conditioned by like media and by education, by everything, to have this disconnect. I don't think it's right to like blame individual people for their wrongs. It is something we have to blame and solve on that bigger picture of the system. So telling someone to be like a bad human being just because they eat what they grew up with and what they were taught to eat, I don't think this is the solution. And this is sometimes like what I've experienced and what I also like observe is that violence in like, you know, vegans, like basically like answering like, you know, violence with violence is not the solution. I think it's much more the way of Mahatma Gandhi, which is gonna provide actually liberation in the long run.
You think when somebody comes into this for health reasons or environmental reasons, it's something you want to praise, but at the same time, you want to always have this undercurrent message of the ethics, so it grounds them to that, because if somebody just does it for a diet, then they're still looking at the animal as a food, and it would be extremely easy for them to think, oh, it's okay for me to eat that at any given point, and fail as a vegan even though they never really were vegan if they were just doing it for a diet and not for the animal.
Again, I come back to that metaphor of the house. I truly think it doesn't matter which door we enter. And even if it's only health and we do it for a while just for health, our sentience and the way we feel will change. So almost inherently, there will be a different understanding of animals, even if we don't, if we don't proactively.
I guess what I'm worried about is, see, somebody does it for health, there's so many ways they could do it wrong. They may be introducing new foods and not have properly acclimated to those foods, or maybe they just stumbled on an allergy. You know, there's tens of thousands of plant options, right? But now they're attributing it to having gone vegan, and this makes it easy for them to get away from it and go back to eating animals, because they're not grounded in the ethics to endure those obstacles and find another way. So I wonder if they've really walked into the house if they're only doing it for a diet experiment, you know. For the first 5 years, I was like, well, I don't care if this is gonna kill me or not. And I was a closet vegan. I didn't know if it was healthy or not. I did it because I saw Gary Yourofsky's best speech. And I'm like, oh, if he doesn't eat animals, I don't want to eat animals, because I don't want to do that to the animals. What he's saying is happening. So for the first 5 years, I was just purely ethical, you know. But I started realizing, like you, I'm not getting colds anymore. my blood work got better. And so I started studying nutrition and realized, wow, anybody can do this. And that's what made me become an advocate. Was there, now I feel like you're somewhat of an advocate. Have you found a way into becoming an advocate? And talk about that a little bit, if you have.
Yeah. So just let me like follow up on that idea like of ethics, health, and so on. So eventually, I would say what we require in the world is like a spiritual transformation. Is that, like, you know, ethics in terms of, okay, saying, okay, you're not allowed to do this, and like blaming other people for doing something is not the route like I see forward, but by actually like accepting ourselves as spiritual beings. And by accepting this divine in ourselves, coming in alignment with the way we are supposed to function in the world now in the 21st century. And this alignment per se requires also a responsible way of eating, a responsible way of how we treat each other, how we treat the planet. Like even like what we think, our thoughts and our words, everything has an impact. Ultimately, everything is energy. And I think understanding that like if we raise our collective energy levels by actually like coming to reconnect with our inner divine and our spirituality, I think this is where ultimately there's just no more place for eating animals.
And you probably end up radiating that and connecting with people in their core spiritual.
Yeah. And that way it's also that like, you know, we actually like have vegans who are beautiful spiritual beings and not people who like make other people feel bad. I think really like if we are able to like go onto that spiritual level and raise that, there's just no more place for eating animals. And my hope is truly that we are able to see that holistic picture of like that it's not just okay, changing what we eat. We also want to change who we are, how we show up. Because I always thought in the beginning when I was vegan, okay, oh cool, another vegan, they must be a great person. And then like, you know, to answer your next question, I organized 2 big veg fests. And I always thought, okay, dealing with vegan business owners is gonna be like so easy. I got to learn the opposite. I mean, like it's, when it comes to business, I got threatened with multiple lawsuits when I organized this veg fest from like other vegan businesses. And I just realized like, you know, nowadays, and that's maybe the difference like 20, 30 years ago, someone who was vegan had needed such a strong conviction to do that it was inherently involved with a spiritual commitment. Because just think back, like also like they were per se much healthier because they had to cook by themselves. All that junk food wasn't out there. 20, 30 years ago, every vegan had definitely like a very strong inner commitment to that, and also was extremely healthy because they cooked healthy by themselves. And I think like, you know, ultimately like being more inclusive for, okay, it can't be as separated as we maybe think about, okay, ethics, health, environment. If we are like more like, you know, inclusive about this and really putting it to the next level of spirituality, that we actually want to develop our characters and souls to the next level so that we can really fulfill the purpose we are here on this planet and be compassionate beings, you know, act in compassion to other beings, to ourselves. I mean, self-love, the way we treat ourselves, the way we treat others, the planet, the animals, and all beings. I mean, trees and plants. And if we just look at our body, what incredible, amazing design our body is, it is just something like, you know, where I can just kneel down and say, thank you, this is incredible. And living up to this devotion towards the blessing of life we have received. I think veganism is such an inherent, you know, component of that. And once we get to like that spiritual evolution, you know, we naturally also will have more of that. This is my hope, and this is also what I would like to advocate for.
Going back to when you were a kid and those cows that you got to know, I don't know if I interpreted it right, but I almost sensed some emotion there. Were you experiencing some deep emotions when you were sharing that bit?
Yeah, I mean, now that I know like what these cows go through, either like if they are dairy cows or if they are calves and then, you know, sent to the slaughterhouse. Yeah, it definitely like makes me very sad to realize that, okay, these are almost kind of products. And these are not products. These are like very loving, empathetic, compassionate, feeling beings. And, you know, this was a tiny farm. I mean, if we think about like how the majority of cows is being held and produced in factory farms, I mean, this is so terrible, and it's not something humanity can afford to be doing at this point in the 21st century. It is like a disservice of where we are in the development of humanity. We can't do something like that.
I feel like you're very grounded in the spiritual side, and the emotional side is an integral part of that. The ethical side, the experience there you've had with animals. Did you have other experiences with animals? And this is kind of something I thought about earlier outside of this interview, asking people, what experiences have you had growing up with animals, to see if maybe there's some commonality there. Maybe we're a little more in tune with animals because maybe we've had relationships with animals.
Yeah, like when I was 4, I think, I had this like little tractor which with pedals, you know, without electricity, just pedals, like very old-fashioned. So I went over to the neighbor around the corner, and yeah, we just sometimes would go there and like, you know, see what he's doing. Didn't realize that, you know, he would do some things like I wouldn't really approve of. Anyway, he had some hares, like, you know, rabbit, like these big rabbits, and sometimes he wanted maybe to just say hi to them. And at one said, yeah, he's gonna kill one now. And then he asked me if I want to see it, and obviously I was young and curious, and I thought, yeah. So in front of my eyes, that guy took the knife. I don't even want to describe it. Like it's still in my eyes. I still can see it. At the end, the fur just hanging on the laundry line. And I don't even understand what's wrong with a person to do something like this in front of a 4-year-old. On the other hand side, maybe this planted the seeds for me, like, you know, becoming a vegan. I don't know. But I think we all have inside ourselves a very clear understanding of what is right and what is not right. It might be foggy because we are so distracted from media. And I mean, even if we think about advertisements, like in Germany, we have this Milka chocolate. So it's literally a purple cow in the Alps, in the mountains, saying like happy cows, and then you have the milk chocolate from them. That is the way, like, you know, we are being advertised. But if we truly listen to our heart and access our own inner wisdom, I think we have a very clear understanding and sense of what is right and what is not right. And doing something like this to an animal, even as like that hair, like, you know, that is so wrong. And, you know, when we were on vacation on like in the North Sea or in the Mediterranean Sea, I had like 3 older siblings, and we were like kind of like animal activists back then on the beach when like the other kids had their like, you know, nets and would catch fish and put it in a bucket, and then, you know, I guess they would eat it later. And my older sister was like very, very good. Like, you know, she was the activist among us, and like, you know, thanks to her like guidance, what we always would take, we would take the buckets when they didn't look, put it back, fish back in there. The other kids hated us, but we did that. And talking about fish, I'm remembering right now one incident, I think, which is very telling of my story. Is we were somewhere in the Alps, or so, I don't remember where, but anyway, the other kids, it was like a camp or something. The other kids wanted to go like fishing in like the little river there. Anyway, we walked through that river with that net. For some reason, I always was hoping, hopefully we don't catch anything. And at some point, they caught like that pretty not very big fish. They took it out of the water, and I saw how the fish is like trying to breathe and couldn't breathe. And then they took that thing and hit on it, like that special thing tool, killed it. Went home, cooked it and ate it. And once they killed it, it somehow like was such a terrible experience for me that I ran home to where like that camp was, and my parents fortunately were there. I think it was actually like, it was not a camp, it was just for the kids, like, you know, because it was a conference or something. My dad was in the middle of the conference room. I ran into him and just cried for the rest of the day after having experienced that like they killed this fish. Because I just said it was not necessary. We could have left him alive.
You know, you're making me pretty upset right now about some experiences I had with my son growing up. Before I was vegan, the logical thing to do with him was take him fishing. And when he saw a fish get hurt one day, it bothered him a lot. And it was an opportunity for me to have a good conversation with him. I wasn't even fishing. I was just allowing him to fish and taking him, you know. Did you have any bonding moments with your family over eating animals or catching animals?
You know, in Germany, we don't really have that hunting culture and that culture of like posting social media pictures with a big fish.
Yeah.
It's just so gross. I've never seen that in Germany, and I'm honestly speaking very grateful that I did not grow up with like, you know, killing animals myself. Because I think this is actually, I don't even know, it would be really interesting to like interview like a brain neuroscientist. What happens to the brain if a child gets used to that? I mean, this is quite painful. So, you know, when it comes to my family, I know that my family, my parents always had good intentions, and it was just a lack of information. They bought like all that organic stuff, biodynamic stuff, and they thought it's like the best they can do. And once my brother and me, we became vegan like around the same time, and we pushed kind of the parents. They were still living in that understanding they grew up with, and like, you know, they buy like that local and everything stuff. And so there was definitely conflict. And again, like, you know, what I experience and observe often, like we are fresh vegans and we push really hard others. But ultimately, like, it is like, okay, I can control what I can change and how I behave. So I want to capitalize and leverage that. I want to be the change and the example and the light where others see how, you know, rewarding that is. But by me blaming others, I actually like almost sabotage actually that awakening process. And I did experience that in my family, that it actually costs the opposite often. And it was at the point, like after a couple of years, where I kind of resigned and just said, okay, I'm not even going to bring it up anymore. 2 months later, my parents were vegan. Now for like over 5 years, from every time I come home now from America, home to Germany, it is such a blessing because I can open the fridge and I don't have to read labels. And we are all on the same page. I mean, I just feel like, you know, having a community where, yeah, you know, it makes living together and cooking together and going on vacation together, all these things, it makes it so easy. Like if you are like on the same line with that. So I'm so grateful that.
Now you don't. Here it's kind of confounded though. You don't know if it's because you didn't say anything for a couple months, or if because you planted those seeds prior to that.
Certainly, and it is probably like a combination of that.
What has been the most challenging part about being vegan?
Honestly speaking, the most challenging situation was in Cuba, to actually find something to eat. I don't remember any other place where it was as difficult. France is quite difficult too.
Really?
Yeah, because they have like a lot of butter and cream in almost everything. And I remember like I asked for something vegan, and then I got like that seafood, oysters or something, like, you know. they consider that vegan. So I said, no, thank you. And that's another thing. I never liked any seafood, and I never liked fish. I'm not sure whether that actions we did as kids with my older sister, that we rescued the fish, had an thing, but I never liked that. And I think that for many people I speak to, seafood is a huge thing. But after seeing Seaspiracy, it's again, a new level of understanding of what actually seafood is causing in the world and how terrible that is. And so yeah, really there's a lot of information what we need to provide, and I do hope that, as I mentioned, we don't separate and isolate things as much, because I think about this holistic awakening is also understanding more we are complete beings, everything is connected. And if we understand okay, the fitness you can't separate from nutrition, it goes hand in hand. Mindfulness can't be separated from meditation, spirituality, faith. I mean, we have an opportunity in America with so much faith. Faith is really, really important in America, and I think this is a huge opportunity also to actually address what is on our plate matters for our faith, to live in alignment with our faith. I think this is so important. So I have a lot of hope that with the way we live, when we come together and actually understand that interdependent web of our existence, understanding that my actions have an immediate impact on the world and also on my life trajectory, and understanding that from a holistic spiritual context, that we will be able to accomplish significant changes in the way we eat and in the way we actually live ultimately.
Do you think we'll ever see a vegan world?
So to answer these questions, I'm coming back to I'm not sure whether we are seeing a vegan world where everything is vegan, but let's say we have this world currently. Everything is same, our business, our economics, everything same, education system and so on. But we are all vegan. I don't think this is, because it would be too isolated. But I don't think we will have that kind of vegan world where we have so much separation and division going on, where we have not developed our minds and our souls onto a new level. But I do think that we have a very big shot and a clear opportunity to actually transform the way we actually live in every aspect of our life, to come more into alignment with the spiritual divine we all have, and we can call it whatever you want to call it, doesn't matter. But to bring it back to that understanding of that inner wisdom and heart, in alignment with nature, in alignment with the universe. I think having a vegan world is very, very possible if we consider truly a transformation of ourselves and of humanity.
Yeah, so essentially what I'm hearing you say is you think it could happen provided everything else that's consistent with that lifestyle comes to fruition alongside it or along with it, but not our current way of doing things. It's not compatible with our current systems. It makes me think of Dr. Salesh Rao. He's got climate healers. I don't know, you ever heard of him?
Yeah. We had him at one of our veg fests.
Yeah.
He made an amazing speech.
Yeah.
And I'm very, very fond of his work. I'm very grateful for his huge contribution he's doing.
Also, somebody else has said, a vegan world is also just, the beginning of it is normalizing it, And I think some of your advocacy work now helps normalize it, because you're not a stereotypical vegan that's out there talking about it through Anonymous for the Voiceless or Direct Action Everywhere or something along those lines, or even just the Veg Fest like you did, you're also doing it through your music. Did you always envision that? I mean, have you been a musician your whole life? And when did you come to imagine merging veganism into that?
Yes, I have been a musician my whole life. I started playing the cello when I was 6 years old, and music has been an important part of my family and is a very important part of my life. And music provides an opportunity to make an impact in the world. And we have seen that, Rostropovich, the famous cellist, when the Berlin Wall fell, in 1989, he went directly there and just played Bach cello suites at the checkpoint Charlie. When the intellect reaches, when we can't explain things, and we at some point we would just keep fighting and arguing, and at some point it doesn't help anymore. But to really speak a different language, the language of the heart, music is a very beautiful vehicle for that, and can be understood by everyone, and is a means of creating understanding among each other. And the famous cellist Pablo Casals, he said that music is the divine way to tell things to the heart. It's a divine way to tell things to the heart. And Pablo Casals is also my example, a very beautiful example of what it means to be an advocate for the world, for humanity, for mankind, for the world as a whole, to actually come to peace and to overcome conflict and provide healing. And that's what I hope to do with my music, is also to truly speak the language of the heart and reach people on that level, to actually empower them to reconnect with who they really are, to have that connection to that inner wisdom, which directly will also provide the understanding of what is right and what is not right, and that integrity of our food choices also. So that is my hope, that I can make an impact with music in the world, to provide healing, understanding, and spiritual awakening.
Have you been doing that the entire time you've been vegan, or is that something that just kind of trickled in over time? And
I definitely have always understood music as a way of advocacy for, as a universal language. And I have played a lot in underserved communities, from schools to prisons to homeless centers. And I definitely have experienced the power of what it means to share music with those people, and what can it mean for them also. So music is such a foundational pillar of society, which is, unfortunately, because in our current world, it's all about faster, better. It's so material now that we save money on arts and music and so on. But one of my understanding as a musician is also to actually implement music as a foundational way of living, that we need it the same way we need to eat something. We need also, music is a really foundational pillar of living, and we can also see that in all the big societies, like the Greek Empire and Roman Empire, when they were at their blossoming, arts was very, very important. But once you start to actually cut down on the arts, it becomes dark. It gets darker. And so I have experienced that aspect of power of music, transformational power of music, in all these situations when I was able to share that with those who need it. To bridge it directly to the vegan message is something I'm so fortunate to have more recently got into, and to have started that project also with Joan Kong of Vegan Virtuosi, where we design specific programs which combine music, performance, and vegan advocacy. So this is definitely something like which I'm very passionate to actually have these two passions of mine, music and veganism, to have them come together. And I'm really like looking forward to sharing more about this in the future with you.
I have a lot of friends that are musicians, and I think they're missing out by not being vegan, because I think having that purpose and integrity would give them even more fuel and passion and emotion. And I see that a lot in your playing, man. I mean, you're deep in it. It becomes you. You know, you are the music. I mean, the emotion is in your face and in how you accentuate your notes, and it's just there, 100% pure. Yeah.
I very much agree with you. And at my first university, Indiana University, in where I did my master in Bloomington, there was this institute for like community engagement music or something. So anyway, they had a beautiful mission to empower music to serve a greater purpose than just the concert hall. Beautiful purpose. And I always felt, whenever there's an event hosted by them, they just have regular food, plastic bottles everywhere, these tiny little plastic bottles. This doesn't really feel right. I always thought, doing one thing, one beautiful mission, but neglecting the other responsibilities doesn't feel right. And I back then always said, okay, why do we have all these plastic water bottles? Why isn't it possible to just have more sustainable, less cruelty-free foods offered for these events? And this is something like where I really want to bring together, and that's exactly what you were saying. Like, as musicians, we have a huge responsibility and mission, and we have a beautiful purpose to bring music into the world. But this doesn't mean that we don't have the responsibility to consider how we eat and what we offer at some of our events. And I really would love to see more musicians coming together to actually understand that, okay, by serving one great purpose, by combining that, we can not only double the impact of our mission, we can actually multiply, and we can truly become like a change agent for the world.
What's your shirt say, man?
Powered by plants. I know there's but this was actually the first shirt we had at Rice University, where I founded the Rice Vegan Society.
Oh, cool.
And we made this for our first Veg Fest 2018. Was our first Veg Fest, and then we had our second Veg Fest 2019. And yeah, the university was a little bit hesitant back then, 2019, but we were able to get some support from the university, and we had a beautiful event. Over 3,000 people came from the community, students. We had food vouchers for the students, over 50 vendors. And our mission back then was already inclusivity. We wanted to be as open and welcoming and hopeful and positive and joyful as possible, to make it fun for students to explore different foods, to explore that lifestyle, without all that blaming, to really make it fun and easy and accessible. So that was our mission. So we had different breakout sessions, from cooking demo to mindfulness and yoga sessions. And then we had Silas Rouse, because doctor, and Dr. Will Tuttle was there also. We had esteemed speakers. And then the last portion of the event was we had a live salsa band, and we had everyone was dancing salsa. So we had a party at the end. And that was like the really cool thing about the event. It was educational, it was fun, it was like bringing the community together, bringing families together, bringing students together, bringing the university plus community together. We worked with a community partner, like a nonprofit organization in Houston also. And it was literally about bringing everyone together and sharing the beauty of life and envisioning how we can make an impact through every meal and make an impact in our lives, in the lives of the people around us, and especially also in the lives of the animals, and in the well-being of Mother Earth and the entire universe.
Now, since we're talking about clothes, I still wear my belt from before I was vegan. It's leather. I mean, there's no sense in me throwing it away, right? I know people might wonder, like, about your shoes.
Yeah, so these shoes, I was in, just directly after high school, I was for a few months in Bolivia. And at first I was just traveling, and then I ended up working in the music school. And then actually, like, I ended up playing in the National Orchestra of Bolivia. Just randomly, like I lived in La Paz for a little bit, and then I subbed in the orchestra there. So I needed concert shoes. So I went with one of the other orchestra kids to like a store there. We bought these. I think it was less than $10 or something. I haven't checked, but I suppose they are real leather.
How long ago was that again?
More than 15 years ago.
Yeah.
So, yes, coming back to like, that holistic aspect I have brought into that. What can I do now? Yeah. I can say thank you and wear these shoes as long as possible. And, being grateful, but also like, getting the most out of it. And honoring these shoes and honoring like whatever animal like has suffered from that. And that is the way, like, I would never buy leather shoes again. But again, I'm like very like into sustainability, and I had 3 older siblings. I never got new clothes in my life. I always had used clothes. So, wearing these as long as possible is, I think, the best I can do at this point.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, my belt's from the 90s, and it's funny because I had to make new holes because I lost weight.
I had to do that recently too, yeah.
So you have any quote you want to share? I think you might have mentioned one earlier already. Is there any other quotes?
Yeah, I mean, definitely the one from Pablo Casals is close to me currently, where we started this new project of vegan advocacy and music. Healing through music and food. Healing and peace and spiritual awakening through music and food. And it's almost like food is nurturing the body, music is nurturing the soul. And maybe all this comes together in our heart. Body, soul, body, mind, and soul. So Pablo Casals quote, music is the divine way to tell beautiful things to the heart.
And I think that might be a good wrap, man. And we'll have some other videos too. I'll link in the description to your performance with Dr. Joanne Kong that we were able to capture recently. And also a little interview. We'll share that in the description too. It's been an honor. I met you first in Texas, and now we're here in Richmond, Virginia. And I guess you're off where to next?
Tomorrow going back to Houston, but then going to Germany. And then actually going back to South America for a little bit. And seeing, like what music is doing there, but also like what vegan is doing there. And I suppose like in South America, there's definitely some potential of us like actually supporting the transformation towards and the understanding of food. It's a very different culture in my experience. So I hope I can make a contribution there too. And yeah, I mean, like, definitely thank you so much for having me, and stay tuned for what we are doing with Dr. Joanne Kong. We have definitely like big projects and hope we get like a bunch of musicians involved. And it would be really wonderful to really like be an example to other musicians of what it means to strive for making a positive empowering impact in the world through our music, but also through the way we act, we behave, we eat. And bringing together vegan and music in a larger context would be really beautiful. And I still have that dream of having a whole vegan orchestra, like a world peace orchestra, to broadcast that message to a much larger audience and with the entire world. So stay tuned for that, and I hope we can share with you some good news soon.